Hello everyone, welcome to my kitchen. My name is Michael. Today I'm going to be making pumpkin cake and a cinnamon cream cheese frosting. You're not going to want to miss this recipe. Stick with me and I'm going to show you how this comes together really quickly. I've got my oven preheating now to 325 degrees Fahrenheit, or that's roughly 160 degrees Celsius. And then I've got two 8-inch cake pans here, and I've got both of those buttered. I put butter on the outside, and I did cut a piece of parchment paper in the bottom, and it's the same size as the bottom of the pan. That way when I get ready to pull these out, that'll come out really easily. And I did put some butter on that also. And I've got my second one here done the same way, buttered with the parchment paper in the bottom. So we're going to go ahead and set that aside, and I'm going to grab one of these bowls, and we're going to work on our dry ingredients now. And I've got one of these little colanders that I use as a sifter, and I'm going to put that here inside. And I'm going to start with my flour, and I've got 2 1/4 cups or 270 grams measured out. And I'm going to put that into my colander here because I'm going to sift all my dry ingredients together. I've got a 1/4 cup of cornstarch, or that is 25 grams, and I'm going to add that in. I've got 2 teaspoons of baking powder, a 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda, a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 2 1/2 teaspoons of ground cinnamon, a 1/2 teaspoon of ground nutmeg, 1 teaspoon of ground ginger, a 1/2 teaspoon of allspice. And I've got a video on my channel. It's a little trivia question. I'll put the link in the description box below. If you don't know what allspice is, check that out. I think it's very interesting. And I was under the impression that it makes something completely different. So I'm going to put that link in the description box. Go check that little short out. I'll put that link down there. It's really interesting what that really is. And I've got a 1/4 teaspoon of ground cloves. All right, I've got all of my dry ingredients now put together except for my sugar. And I'm going to put that with my wet ingredients. But we're going to go ahead and sift what I've got here now into this bowl. And it's a good thing we always do that because there's always some hard places in there that we definitely don't want that in our cake. And what I've got left in here, I'm going to set that to the side. I'll dispose of those later. And I'm going to take a whisk, and I'm just going to whisk all those together so that we get all of that incorporated together very nicely. All right, I've got all of that incorporated together now, so let's set that aside and work on the rest of our ingredients. I've got 1 1/2 cups of sugar, or that's 300 grams, and we'll put that into this bowl. And I've got 3 large eggs here. I brought these to room temperature. You definitely want all your ingredients to be at room temperature. It makes everything bake easier that way. I'm going to crack them into this bowl just to make sure I've got 3 good ones, and then I'll put those into the other bowl. That's a good egg. I didn't get any shells on that, so we'll go ahead and add that into my sugar, and I'll check my other 2. I've got 1 cup of a neutral oil here. This is just a neutral vegetable oil. I'm going to put that in, or that is 200 grams. I've got a 1 1/4 cup of pumpkin puree. You want pumpkin puree and not pumpkin pie filling. This is pumpkin puree, or that's 300 grams. If you go to the store and use the canned pumpkin, definitely check that out because it's right beside each other. You want pumpkin puree for this cake. I've got a 1/4 cup of milk, and this is room temperature also, or this is 60 milliliters, and we'll add that in. This is 2 teaspoons of vanilla. If you've never seen how vanilla is made, I'll put the link in the description box below. Go check that out. I know you'll enjoy that video to watch that. And if you're looking for something for somebody that has everything that's a cook, definitely that might be something that you could make and give as a gift. I know they would appreciate it. 2 teaspoons of vanilla, and I've got 1 teaspoon of white vinegar. I'm just going to take the spatula and break these eggs up and give this a mix together. I'll probably use the whisk in just a minute to make sure that everything gets incorporated, but just to get the process started, I'm going to use this spatula. I've got these ingredients mixed together now. Now let's add our dry ingredients in with it. I'm going to switch back to the spatula because with any kind of cake that you make that's homemade, you just want to make sure that you get it integrated together. You don't want to be kneading it a lot because it will make the cake very dense and tough, and we don't want that. It's different than a box cake. With the homemade cakes, you just make sure that you get the ingredients mixed together where you don't see that flour anymore. So just fold it together just like this until you don't see any of the flour anymore. All right, I've got my ingredients mixed together now. I'm going to grab my cake pans, and I'm going to show you something else that I've got here. All right, so I've got my cake strips here now. I'm going to put those on the outside of my cake pan. And the cake strips, if you've never used those before, they help with the... If you've ever baked a cake before and you get the domed layers on those where you have to cut those off to make those even, the cake strips themselves create a moisture barrier there on the outside, and it will make the cake cook evenly all the way through, and it won't have that domed shape to it. So these are really nice. You soak them in water, and then you just put them on the outside, and they really help from keeping your cakes doming up like that. So just get them wet and put them around the outside of your cake pan, and they'll stay right on there with it. And I'll show you definitely what that looks like when we pull that out of the oven. All right, I've got my cake strips on my cake pans. We want to divide our cake batter out. If you wanted to weigh this, you can. I'm just going to eyeball it and try to get it so that I get an even amount in both of my pans. I've got my batter now in the pans. I'm just going to give that a little tap, kind of get that distributed out. And I put them back on this tray, and I'm going to cook them on the tray. I find that it's just easier that way. You get an even heat distribution under the cake pans. It bakes evenly, and you don't get those hard spots on the bottom of your cake. I'm going to put these now in that preheated oven, and I'm going to cook these between 25 and 35 minutes. Everybody's oven cooks a little bit differently, so you'll be able to tell if you stick a skewer or a toothpick in it and it comes out clean. So I'll come back and show you what this looks like once these are done. I am back and my cake is done. I did pull it out of the oven at 30 minutes and tested it. You test it with a toothpick. If it comes out clean, it's done. I've had these sitting here on the counter for about 20 minutes now. And what we want to do, you don't want to try to pull those out before the 20-minute time, because if, as you can see here, they'll start pulling away from the sides. And if they don't, then you can take, like a flat knife or something. I've got one of these offset spatulas here, and you can run that along the side to get it out of it. So I've got 2 wire racks here, and I'm going to put those on it so they can continue to cool down. They're still a little warm to the touch, but I can still grab a hold of it, and I can feel it come out of there very nicely. That butter that we put on that pan really helped, and this parchment paper right here is another preventative for that sticking to the bottom. So I'm going to put that here on this rack, and I'm going to set the other one here on the side of it, and I'm going to let these continue to cool down, and then I'm going to come back and I'll get my ingredients together once these have cooled, and I'll make my cinnamon cream cheese frosting. My cake layers are cooling down now, and I'm going to go ahead and start with my ingredients for my frosting. This is a cinnamon cream cheese frosting. This is absolutely delicious. So I've got 3/4 of a cup or 170 grams of unsalted butter, and I'm going to put this into this bowl, and I'm going to take my mixer and I'm just going to mix this together and blend it together until it gets really creamy and smooth. It should take a couple of minutes, and your butter needs to be at room temperature before you start, or you'll be standing here for hours trying to get this to cream up. So definitely have your butter out at room temperature before you start this process. All right, that's got that process started now. I'm going to take the spatula and I'm going to push this down on the sides and make sure that we get all of that incorporated into that. It's almost done. It's very smooth, as you can see here with that. And another minute of whipping this butter and it should be right where we want it to be. All right, my butter looks really good now. I'm going to turn that off, and I'm going to grab my confectioner sugar. I've got 3 1/4 cups or 400 grams of my confectioner sugar, and I'm going to put this in about 3 equal parts. I'm going to try to just put a little bit in there at a time, and then we'll blend this in until we get it all incorporated. All right, I'm going to add just a little bit more of my confectioner sugar. I've got the butter and the confectioner sugar mixed together now. I'm going to go ahead and get my cream cheese. The cream cheese, I just pulled it out of the refrigerator. You want it to be cold. This is a heaping cup or 250 grams of cream cheese, and we'll add that in. I've got 1 teaspoon of vanilla, and I've got 1/2 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, and we'll go in and mix this together. I've got my cinnamon cream cheese frosting mixed together, and I wanted to show you what the texture of that looks like. That looks really nice. You don't want to over whip it because it'll get really soft, because that cream cheese will start warming up. So definitely you want it the consistency that will be able to spread on your cake, but not so runny that it's going to run off the side of your cake. So I'm going to go ahead and grab one of these layers now, and we'll go ahead and start frosting our cake. All right, I've got my cake stand here. I'm going to grab one of my layers now of my cake, and we're going to put this here on the bottom. And those cake strips on the side really help out. I wanted to show you what that looked like. You don't really have to take a lot of that off of it. If you don't do that with those cake strips, you'll get a really huge mounting on there, and you'll take it off, and you don't want to really waste anything when you've got it looking like this already. All right, so let's get some of our cream cheese in here. We're going to put a big dollop here in the middle, or maybe 3 big dollops in the middle. And I've got an offset spatula, and just going to move that around so we get a nice even layer on that. All right, I've got a nice even layer there in the middle. I'm going to grab the top layer of my cake. That looks really good and even, and we'll grab some more frosting. We'll put that on the top, and we'll get that offset spatula on the top, and we'll go ahead and get that spread out here. Now I put enough in that middle there that I can go ahead, and when I push that down on it, it kind of pushed some of that on the side, and that way you can get enough to go around your bottom. I have a wonderful slice of my pumpkin cake with my cinnamon cream cheese frosting here. I'm going to give this a try. This looks absolutely delicious and the smell is incredible. Let's give this a try. That is absolutely delicious. All those flavors are coming through that cake, all those spices that we put in there. That pumpkin is coming through there really good. And that frosting that we've got on the outside of it, that cinnamon cream cheese frosting, is absolutely delicious. I know you're going to want to try this recipe. Share it with your friends and your family. They're going to want to make this cake as well. I hope you like this content, and if you do, maybe you might consider giving me a thumbs up. I would really appreciate it. And while you're at it, check out one of these other 2 videos over here on the side. You might find something else you like. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. I'll see you in my next video. Bye-bye now. I'm going to have me another piece. Delicious.